For all you groundhoppers out there, this podcast is for you. This is the FANA Fan Podcast, and I'm Topliss, and for all you groundhoppers out there, this podcast is for you. And tonight, it's a guest we've been after for a long time. He's finally here. Vaughany, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. You've been after me for a while. Dear.
Yeah, we've been guests.
We have been talking about doing this for a while, haven't we? And whether I've sort of just well, we're here now. Yeah, so
we're here now, mate. Yeah, great to see you at Clonelly the other week.
So yeah, it was good, wasn't it? Last sort of game of the season, wasn't it? The game wasn't overly great, and there wasn't many of us there, but it was a good afternoon out, and great to see you and everything, and seen you for a bit. So it was really good.
Indeed, yeah. So, Lee Vaughan from Shrewsbury. What's your background? How did it all start? How did you get into football?
Well, I think this is where you kind of like the Star Wars sort of theme sort of comes in, isn't it? You know, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, really, isn't it? Where did I start in football? I started in football like I guess any kid does, at a young age, 7 or 8. I started watching football, started going to watch Shrewsbury with my dad, and I think that's probably the same as any young lad, his family members take him to the football. Shrewsbury's my local team. I grew up here. Apart from sort of 10, 12 years where I sort of moved away, or still be fairly locally, I've always lived in Shrewsbury. So I started going in 1978. So I'm sort of showing my hand really a little bit in terms of how old I am really. But it was a great season for us as well. First season, started going there. We won the 3rd division. It's the first time we'd ever been at that division, and got promoted into what's now the Championship, so Division 2. So I think I was kidded at quite an early age into thinking that Shrewsbury were actually quite a good side. And it's probably been a downward sort of spirals and slides since, really, to be quite honest. But and really from there, I suppose, my dad sort of was taking me to games pretty regularly, only really home games. I mean, there was a couple of away games sort of in the FA Cup, sort of 1979, 1982 that I went to at Wolves and Leicester. But I was sort of too young to sort of go on my own. And then sort of, I suppose, as I got into secondary school, sort of met up with sort of, like-minded guys who went like football and wanted to go to the football. We'd start sort of going, paper round money would start paying for me to be able to go and that type of thing, really. And then I suppose you sort of progress into sort of going to sort of local away games, Warsaw, Birmingham, that type of thing. And that sort of started sort of, I suppose, sort of late 80s, really. So
Shrewsbury Town, then obviously through history, predominantly 3rd division team, aren't they? Really, mostly League One.
Yeah, when I was sort of growing up, I think they spent maybe a couple of divisions, or a couple of years, I should say, down in the 4th division. League One, what is now League One, to 3rd division. Spent 10 years up in the Championship, or Division 2, from 79 to 1989. Got relegated back into the 3rd division, and then it sort of alternates. Well, the 3rd division got relegated into 4th division. A couple of years after that, went back up after a couple of years, I think. So 93, 94 season, we got promoted back into 3rd division, spent another 3 seasons there, and then we got relegated again sort of 1997, and that was a little bit of a decline for the club. We spent it was about 6 seasons, I think, in Division 4, which was the longest stint we'd ever had in that division. And then 2003, we actually got relegated into the conference, so which is the National League. So we spent a season in there. Fortunately, got promoted straight back, and then another stint in Division 4 in League 2. So 2004, we got promoted, I think, back into League 1. 2012, and then apart from one season where we got relegated and went straight back up, every season since 2012 has been in League One. So I quite enjoyed being in League One, actually, to be quite honest. There's some decent sides that we play. I mean, currently, we've just lost Sunderland, but we've still got Sheffield Wednesday in there. Ipswich, Bolton, Portsmouth, obviously Derby have come down. So you always get a bit of a plethora of sort of, big sides that sort of fall into that little bit of a treacle trap. And, Shrewsbury, really, I think I look now and probably think back to sort of 1979, we've got promoted and we were probably punching a little bit above our weight in the Championship or in Division 2. That's probably what we're doing a little bit now in League One, really. I know that the chairman has probably got designs to want to be up in a Championship, but we'd be an extremely small fish in a very big pond if that was the case. So, not saying it's not possible, but I think League One probably gives us quite a good mix of some big clubs coming to visit us. We're able to kind of go to some decent grounds, some decent away days, but you've also got that sort of fish on the end of the rod, really, with it, where we're able to sort of win a few games in that as well, really. So, life's good in League One, really, to be quite honest. We love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, small towns might get me into trouble, like Rotherham, like Barnsley, like Wickham can do it. Even Bournemouth can do it. They were really near the bottom.
Yeah,
why not Shrewsbury?
Well, I mean, it's, at the end of the day, that the chairman here, the chairman now is in his 80s. He's always had designs to try and get us back up into the second tier. One of these seasons, I guess he might end up just chucking a load of money at it, and we'll just see what happens. And if we get up, we get up. If we don't, we don't. I mean, in fact, we actually missed out to Rotherham 4 years ago, and I think in the League One playoffs, so Rotherham actually kind of got back up into Championship, beat us at Wembley, and that's the closest we've ever been to kind of getting back. Most seasons in League One are ones where we're sort of looking over our shoulder. We're looking at the bottom of the table rather than upwards. That was a little bit of an anomaly that season, and we started off well and we stayed there. And unfortunately, we sort of drifted away a little bit towards the end of the season, and Wigan and Blackburn sort of popped us to the top two spots. But we still secured third place, which was good for us. Obviously, we missed out sort of narrowly in the playoffs in the end. But it's funny, actually. I was actually over in Munich a few weeks ago for the England game, and talking to a couple of Rotherham fans who were staying in a hotel. And I'm quite jealous of Rotherham, actually, to be quite honest, because I think they've got it just about right where they are at the moment. They're too good for League One, so they have a good season in League One. Yeah. Get promoted back to the Championship, maybe not quite good enough for the Championship, come back down, then go back up. So they've always got something to play for most seasons. They're either looking over their shoulder in the Championship or they're looking up from League One. So I'm quite jealous of those guys at the moment. I think they've got it bang on. Every season there's something to play for, and I think one of these seasons, if they keep yo-yoing between the two, one of these seasons they're gonna stay up. One of these seasons they will stay up, and then once they've got the foothold, then it's then down to the three teams then that come up from League One the following season, isn't it? So if they could hang on for one season, they possibly could just kick on. But yeah.
Well, I mean, me and the Mary Miller, as you know him, Jack, were talking about it, and I said that I thought Rotherham, the season that went down before last season, COVID year, behind closed doors year, I thought they were very unlucky because they were looking like they were going to push on for mid-table, like during the start of the season, but with all the postponements due to COVID, they ended up having a big backlog of fixtures at the end of the season, which effectively killed them, unfortunately. And like you say there, having that one season where they kick on, Barnsley nearly did it. They're exactly the same. Yeah,
that's right. But Barnsley are a little bit, I suppose, a little bit of an odd one as well, because they had quite a good season before last. I think did they make the playoffs? I think they might have made the playoffs.
Yeah,
and then last season they just bombed, haven't they? So, but League One this coming season, okay, we've lost Rotherham, but we gained Barnsley back. Barnsley are going to be a tough team to play. Peterborough have always got a little bit of cash. Peterborough didn't really make as much of a fist of the Championship last season as I thought they might do. But they've always got a little bit of money. They're always sort of, be able to flash a little bit of cash in League One. So you'd expect those guys to be thereabouts. I mean, Derby are the name that have come down, and I really don't know what to expect from those guys. If there's one thing, actually, as a Shrewsbury fan, we're all getting a little bit twitchy about this season so far, or pre-season, is that we're not really signing that many players. We've got quite small squad, paper thin squad, and I think there's only probably Derby that have got less players than us at the moment.
Yeah.
But I really don't know what to think of Derby. I think as a name, obviously they're a massive name. They're a massive name and team in League One, but what they're going to have in terms of playing staff, I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen with that one?
Well, I mean, I think there's been 2 offers on the table. I think past coming hours. Mike Ashley's one of them. I think he's matched the offer for some other guy. I can't remember his name, but once they get that sorted, I think they'll kick on. But I don't know if they're going to go straight back up. Are they going to be like Sunderland in a few years? I mean, personally, I think this season it'll be Wednesday that get top 2. I don't. Barnsley are always up there like Rotherham, aren't they? They'll probably fight for it. I don't know if they'll do it. A lot of talk about Ipswich being favourites to be up there as well. I definitely think Wednesday will do it this season. Don't know much. Peterborough will be thereabouts in the playoffs. Plymouth maybe.
Yeah.
MK Dons maybe.
I believe that Ipswich are the favourites. I was talking to somebody this afternoon, and they were saying that Ipswich were the favourites to kind of go up. The manager that's been in situ now, I mean, he's had a good sort of half season, so 3/4 of the season now, I think now. So, this is the season maybe they should sort of kick on. I mean, I know that, and I know this was the start of the sort of like the COVID season, but we were talking to some Ipswich fans early doors that season when we went down to Ipswich. I mean, they nailed us 3-0, and we were never in it. But they were very much of the ilk that they were only in League One for the season, and they started sort of well, but they drifted away quite sort of badly, and they haven't really been there or thereabouts really sort of since. So it's going to be a little bit of a step up for those guys. I mean, I think obviously Sunderland kind of got out this season, but they've been gradually building. They've got to the playoffs a couple of times, so they've been gradually building, and you kind of think, they'll kind of get up. Where Ipswich haven't really had that sort of momentum, so they're really going to have to hit the floor running to early doors. I mean, yes, I mean you kind of look at Ipswich, and yes, they should be there or thereabouts. I would agree with you. I think Sheffield Wednesday will probably again be round about. I would probably think they're probably just favourites. But then you've got other teams that are coming back into the reckoning, sort of like Bolton. Nobody's talking about Bolton, another fairly big club in League One, and I think they're recruiting quite well. So League One, really, for any of these teams to drop out of the Championship is not particularly a good division to be sort of dropping into if you've got designs to kind of go straight back up, because there are some pretty big sides in there. And you've still got your Pompeys, you've still got Charltons, and then that's not talking about the other clubs there that have had good seasons last season, like your Wickhams and your MK Dons and Plymouth and some of these other teams that Oxford are another one that I think could kick on and get into the playoffs. There's a whole plethora of Charlton. There's plenty of teams there that you look at and think, it's it's kind of. In fact, actually, I was looking at the fixtures this morning, and looking at sort of, like I said, Shrewsbury, we tend to be looking over our shoulder a little bit in League One, looking at relegation spots, and you kind of think, who's going to be, potentially 4 teams worse than us. And I've got to be honest, I was struggling to pick 4. You kind of like, it's not long until you're into, some of the mid sort of table teams, maybe like your Burtons and sides of that, and even sort of like people, teams like Charlton and Portsmouth, were mid-table last season. You think, well, actually, they're never going to be finishing below us. So, it's a tough division. It's a tough division.
Yeah, I mean, look at the teams that have come up. I mean, who's going to? Forest Green will be a relegation battle this season, but if they stay up, they'll kick on. Exeter, they're normally down there a little bit, aren't they? Rovers will kick on. They always do. I think that they're unlucky to go down. I don't know what happened to them. Port Vale's one I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I mean, I suppose the 4 teams that have sort of come up, and we haven't sort of mentioned those guys yet. Forest Green, I don't know a great deal about them. And I saw them last season. I actually went down to Brentford last season in League Cup early doors to tick off Brentford's new ground, and it was an evening game against Forest Green in the League Cup. And for a good hour, I thought they were probably the better team, albeit that Brentford were playing a weakened team. I mean, I think in the end, it finished 3-0, so they blew them away eventually. But I was impressed with Forest Green. thought they looked pretty good. So it wasn't, or I suppose at the end of the day, it wasn't a surprise that they probably finished where they did, because what I saw that night was like, actually these guys are good. In fact, actually thinking about it, it might be 3-1. I think Forest Green might have taken the lead. Again, the other teams that have come up, I mean, you'll know better than me, kind of haven't seen these guys last season. Bristol Rovers, I mean, they're a big club again, aren't they? Again, probably shouldn't have gone down the season before last. Again, I mean, you kind of like, you look at sort of mid-table teams in League One, you think Bristol Rovers should sort of more than amicably be sort of achieve that. Port Vale, I don't know a lot about Port Vale, in all fairness. I
mean, traditionally they have been a third division club. It's just the recent years they've had bad chairman, bad protests against the chairman. So I think that might have what I've done to him.
In terms of size of club, then yes, they're a League One club. In terms of playing squad, again, I don't know a great deal about them. Exeter, would feel like the team that you think if one of those four was going to struggle, and it would probably be Exeter. You'd sort of say Forest Green as well, but I'm not so sure about them. I mean, I think you always look at League One and you say, well, Accrington Stanley are always going to be one of those bottom four, but they never are. I mean, those guys have got it absolutely, hit the nail on the head in terms of what they achieve season upon season. I mean, they're just immense in terms of wages and that they pay, the recruitment and everything. They've just got it sort of bang on. They pay absolute peanuts, but they some of the players that they've got playing from, and the players clearly want to play for them as well, don't they? Yeah. So I would say out of the four, Exeter would probably be the one that would struggle, but who knows? I mean, we've got Morecambe away first game of the season. So I think there's a few of us that will probably go up to that, seaside trip in July. Why wouldn't you? You'd probably say that Morecambe, for me, would probably be one of the teams that would probably struggle as well. But like I said, this morning I was having a look at it, and I was struggling to pick four teams out and out that I thought would probably go down from League One. Very competitive league. I think anybody on their day can beat anybody. I think we probably proved that last season. I think of the teams that sort of went down, Crewe, I think who finished bottom, we drew home and away. Doncaster, second from bottom, we lost away, drew at home. Gillingham, I think we won away. We won at home. I think we drew away, and then just think of the other team that's gone down there. Wimbledon. Yeah, we drew away and beat them at home. But certainly against the bottom two, it was 3 draws and a defeat, so that wasn't great. But then when you look at the top of the table, Sheffield Wednesday, we beat them at home and drew away. So we're Crewe, we've only taken 2 points. Sheffield Wednesday, we took 4 points. So it's just a bit bizarre sometimes. I tend to find with us, I think we tend to raise our games against sort of probably some of the supposed bigger boys in League One. But hey, that's where we go. So that was a great question, really. We started off where do we start in football? We've ended up sort of, I suppose, having a review of League One, really, haven't we? But
absolutely.
So there we go. I suppose going back to your original question, there, Jay. I mean, I think, like I say, I started in 79, and that has just sort of progressed on with sort of season tickets and sort of whatever sort of since. So even with probably a lot of the other football that we're probably going to kick on and talk about in a bit, I've still got a season ticket now, so still get to a fair amount of games, still try and go to a few away games whilst juggling, the ground hopping and watching England and everything else that sort of goes with it, really, to be quite honest.
It's just a terrible shame that I won't be making the trip to Shrewsbury because of Port Vale, if you know what I mean. But
we were hoping that was going to happen, weren't we? We were hoping that was going to happen, but hey.
It happens. Stuff happens. Maybe next season.
Yeah.
Let's talk about England then. So, as well as Shrewsbury, you're also a big follower of England. How did that start?
Yeah. First England game I ever went to, actually, my dad took me to an England-Wales game, actually, at Wrexham, because Wales used to play a lot of their internationals at Wrexham, which is only sort of 30 miles up the road from here. And we got a ticket for Wales against England, which I think was around about 1980, and actually Welsh beat us 4-1. So I was like, So yeah, it started well. What a cracking start. But I always remember that Wales at the time had got a manager called Mike England in charge of him, and I remember kind of pestering my dad as to why is he not in charge of England with a name like that, you know? But you know, the questions you ask as a kid, you know. And then I suppose, you know, I obviously, you know, I'm born in England, so we're watching England in the Euro Championships in 1980, World Cup in 1982, and of course, I suppose really you never used to get no sort of live football really on the television. So apart from the FA Cup final, which was the only domestic game you'd get on, the only other live games that you'd get on terrestrial TV would be England games. So they were all sort of free to air. So obviously the interest in that built because, you know, obviously you'd see a national team on the TV and, you know, okay, Euro 80, World Cup 82. We didn't qualify for the Euros in 84, but World Cup 86. So, you know, there was big tournaments that England would have been involved with. And then I suppose we sort of got older, Euro 88, and then sort of by Italia 90, you know, I was sort of off down the pub and watching the games sort of, you know, with my mates and I suppose at that point, you know, starting to go to a few games at Wembley. There was a couple of school trips actually where we had down to Wembley. I think we played certainly sort of played Scotland a couple of times, Brazil as well at Wembley. I think in the Rouse Cup. So you know, that was obviously, you know, compared to going to Shrewsbury, you know, with a few thousand people all of a sudden, you know, kind of as a kid, you know, jumping off the bus and walking into Wembley with sort of, you know, 50, 60,000 or kind of whatever it might be, and maybe a few more for those type of games. Certainly the Scotland game would have probably been a sellout. So it was, it was a different place to be really. But I mean, I started sort of going to, I suppose, to home games probably from the late 80s. It was late 80s, early 90s. Not every game, but, you know, sort of, you know, games that we'd pick and sort of go down to Wembley, go on a train. And then I suppose going to home games picked up in terms of going to every game sort of regularly from probably about the late 90s up to now really. And then we started to put a few sort of away games into that mix as well. So we travelled over to France in 97 for Le Tournoi. That was sort of like the first tournament football, albeit that it was only a friendly sort of tournament, and then over to France the following year then for the World Cup, and then that sort of progressed from there on really.
Wow, so it was France 98 your first official tournament watching England?
Away,
yeah.
Away so it was, yeah. Did
you go to Euro 96 as well then?
So a couple of games there we did. But again, I suppose it was that kind of gave it the momentum to really think, yeah, I need to push on and do this sort of more regularly. I said France 98, yeah, that was my first away tournament, and really from that point on, yeah, so it's been a little bit of a sort of mix and match. I mean, I didn't get out to Japan or Korea in 2002, and mainly I suppose down to money really, kind of like, you know, kind of sort of long sort of moved into a new house and that type of thing. So, you know, you can't sort of do it all. And you know, I'm not saying I'm Mr. Moneybags now, because I'm not by any stretch, but we've probably got a little bit more disposable income that we can, you know, all of us, when you sort of get to my age, you can sort of afford to pay for a few things sort of here and there, which I couldn't do at the time. But Euro 2004 in Portugal, right for that, I was out for the 4 England games there. World Cup 2006, 2008 due to the Wally with the Brolly, we didn't qualify for Switzerland or Austria, the Euros there. 2010 actually I didn't bother with.
A long way into South Africa.
Yeah, that was World Cup in South Africa. I didn't bother with that, but every tournament since then I have. So
Ukraine.
Brazil? I went to Brazil for a couple of games. Yeah, I was out in Brazil for a couple of games. In fact, actually, the funny thing was about Brazil, I went out for the second and third group games, and by the time we played the third group game, we were already out. So it was dead rubber. I actually ended up talking to a couple of guys from Shifnal that I knew.
Okay, yeah.
One of them I played football with, so that they were out there. There's actually 3 guys from Shifnal. And the Costa Rica game, we were actually back at the back of the stand having a beer together, having a chat, and sort of said, you know, we need to get this sorted. Really, to be quite honest, we could have phoned each other or texted each other and met in a pub in Shrewsbury or kind of where we didn't need to fly sort of 6,000 miles or kind of whatever it is to Brazil to have done that. It was an expensive beer we all sort of shared, but yeah, it was good fun, and obviously the memories you make, and places that you see along the way as well. Really, the football sometimes just pales into insignificance, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some famous moments during that time since foreign England. We had a guy on in season 1, a friend of mine called Brian. He's been to a few. He watches England regularly. He said that the Germans in 2006, they know how to do things properly. I mean, what's your thoughts? Where's the best country you've been to watch England away in one of these tournaments, do you think?
Germany, I've got to be honest, kind of even in sort of general money terms, I suppose, in terms of ground hopping and that, is always somewhere I tend to gravitate to anyway, because it's, I just think the organisation there, I think, the travel and everything that you've got, the stadiums are great, the atmospheres are great, tickets are affordable. It's a go-to country. The World Cup in 2006, was great. Again, everything that sort of goes with what you expect to find in Germany was sort of there. The weather was great. I mean, I think you don't tend to sort of respect sort of the German weather, really, to be quite. In the summer it's very hot, and in the winter it's actually really cold. We think it gets hot and cold here, but we don't get the same sort of shift as they do. So you can quite easily sort of in the summer sort of be in sort of 30 odd degree heat, and in the winter it can be freezing cold, and you're chucking Glühwein down your throat like it's antifreeze, and it's making no difference at all. I've been there at times it's been really cold, but I'm looking forward to 2024, the Euros over there. It's going to be great. It's going to be good. If you're going to go to a tournament and you're going to go out with the lads, I definitely recommend it. If you can get tickets, then go and have a look. Yeah, definitely recommend it. Well,
a few of my Mansfield friends, they've joined the membership. They paid their money to get the membership. I'm going to do soon, hopefully. I'd personally like to get out to America for that one. I've seen some of the grounds that are going to be used and thinking, wow.
Have you seen the one in? I think it's in Mexico, the Monterey. I think it's Monterey.
Fantastic. Beautiful.
You've got the mountain sort of. Knowing us, we'll get to play there, and we'll be looking the other way, and you could be able to see a McDonald's sign or something over in the distance rather than the mountain. But we'll be facing the wrong way. But it looks immense. I mean, World Cups are difficult to qualify for, but I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that we make it out to that one.
Absolutely, yeah. What's your best memory watching England then over these tournaments, would you say? What do you have a favourite memory?
Not Iceland in 2016.
I was going to ask what your worst one was after.
Yeah, that will. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll start on that one. Being as I've brought it up, I mean that one. I think that was an unexpected result. Really, I think most of us, even though Iceland at that point in time were a tough nut to crack, they were a decent side. I think the expectation is we should be winning the game. Yeah. It was just a complete shambles from start to finish. And I've got to be honest, the game prior to that against Slovakia, actually, I thought was a bit sort of shambolic, because we'd drawn the first game in 2016 against Russia, when we probably should have won the game. Yeah. The Russians equalised with the last minute of the game. We should have won it. We then went into a difficult game against Wales, and we came through that. We won, and you kick on from that. You win a difficult game against Wales like that. You kick on. We beat Slovakia. We win the group, and then we gain that momentum. And for whatever reason, the manager decided to change the team completely and completely changed around. It really knocked us off our stride. We ended up with a 0-0 draw against Slovakia, and then we ended up finishing second in the group and surrendering the top spot to Wales. I still really don't understand why we do that. I don't understand to this day why we did that.
Mentality.
And I think that was just a carry on over then into the Iceland game. We take an early lead and you think, oh, okay, maybe
kick on.
Here we go. And
straight away.
It was a shocker. And I've got to be honest, I flew home because I actually paid quite a lot of money to get out to Nice for that. I think it was like one of these organised day trips. I'd gone from Birmingham. And the guys I regularly go with, I just said to them, you know what, this is me done with it. I finished, and came home and had the pig on for a couple of days and told everyone I was that was it. I was retired. I was saving me money for other things. I'm going to take up crochet or do something a bit different with my life. But a couple of 3 days later, the first qualifiers actually for the World Cup in 2018. First one was actually Slovakia away in a place called
game.
Yeah, it was a place called Vaughany. And one of the guys I travel with, Adam, he texted me and he said, do you fancy it? I know you've retired. I know you've said that you're not going to bother with it anymore, but I'm looking at a sort of 3-day trip to Budapest. One of the guys that we know was running a coach over from Budapest to Trevana. It's somewhere we haven't been. It's a new ground, and then it all sort of starts to snowball again, doesn't it? So 3 days later, I was out of international retirement and off we go again. And everyone knew I was full of it. Basically, it wasn't ever going to last. But best game.
Some famous moments. I mean, even that Daniel Sturridge last-minute goal was a famous moment. Watching England for a lot of us at home, the limbs.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've got to be honest. Even going back to last summer, the Germany game at Wembley, very special moment. And I think to be back in that environment after we've had sort of 12, 18 months of not seeing anybody. Massive game like that, performance. Okay, it was maybe quite an even game, maybe a little bit of a stale game up until sort of 60, 70 minutes. But last 20 minutes was absolutely sort of bonkers. And now you just think of that last 20 minutes of the game, it was incredible. But even beating Denmark, obviously the Ukraine game as well, which we couldn't go to. But some of those moments have been some of the best, really. And I think. Certainly with Wembley, a lot of people saying about Wembley can't generate its atmosphere. Well, I think that kind of went out the window. Certainly with the Germany game, we proved that Wembley could generate an atmosphere and supporters in there can. Going back over time, I mean, there's even sort of like I know we lost the game, but even like against Argentina in the World Cup in 98, the Michael Owen goal and things like that. There have been some good moments. I mean, like I said, sometimes it's not just about the football, but if you're looking purely at the football, there's been some highs and lows, and it's been good. It's been good fun.
I'll tell you one of my personal favourite was Russia 2018, and England for the first time ever won on penalties. Eric Dyer's penalty for me. I've never been in a place where the roof has literally come off nearly.
You probably can't see it. There's a couple of pictures there that a friend of mine, or a couple of friends, mine bought for my birthday in
my
50th. And one is actually Stuart Pearce. The top one is actually
the red one.
Is Pickford actually saving one of the Colombian penalties.
Carlos Bacca, as soon as he saved it, I thought we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Eric Dyer scored, and I was in Leadmill in Sheffield, and honestly, that was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was in tears, I couldn't believe we won a penalty shootout. Because everyone, when he blew whistle, end of extra time, I was just like, we lost penalties.
Yeah.
And then we did it and went all the way to the semi-final.
Good to finally get one, wasn't it? Good to finally get one. And that was sort of where you kind of think, actually, you start to believe. But, we've finally got that, that off our backs, haven't we, in terms of that penalty shootout. We kind of, we lost against the Italians last year, so we haven't completely sort of shaken it, but we're getting better, aren't we? We're getting
Absolutely.
better. We kind of like, certainly in sort of my time following England, this is probably as good as it's probably been in terms of what we've achieved, albeit that we haven't actually won anything. Obviously a semi-final in 2018 at the World Cup, Nations League finals, year later in Portugal. And obviously the final of the Euros sort of last year. Whether we can kick on, whether we can do any more or not, who's to see. Southgate's getting a little bit of a hard time off people at the moment, isn't he? So we'll have to wait and see.
I'm not Southgate out at all. I genuinely believe that the players are tired and probably not interested. That's why I thought we lost to Hungary 4-0. It's a weakened team as well. It's not our best side. You know,
No.
what do you think? Not Southgate out at all.
No, I'm not. I mean, I think the guy has earned a decent crack at this. I mean, I think at the end of the day, people have got short memories in terms of where we've been over the years. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, there's been a lot of poor stuff that I've seen from an England angle for a long time. There is an argument, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with this, in that what people are saying, that Gareth Southgate is sort of has possibly held us back in games. And I think maybe the Italy game last summer, you know, we get an early lead. If we keep going at them, we get 2-0 up, we win the game.
Yeah,
I thought his tactics probably in that game were probably a little bit negative. He let the Italians back in. Probably similarly, you'd probably say to the Croatia game, maybe in the World Cup of 2018, we probably did a very, very similar thing.
Yeah.
And I've got to be honest, if people argued that and said, well, actually, Southgate's tactics probably got us to that point, but his tactics equally lost us those games, I'd find it quite difficult to argue against that.
Yeah.
Albeit that I suppose our sort of quite negative tactics, and this is only sort of my opinion, I think what is deemed as being quite negative tactics with sort of 3 centre halves. You've got the 2 central midfielders, defensive midfielders that play in front of them, and then you play with wing backs. I think the reason we can't play with a 4 at the back with 2 centre halves is because we haven't got 2 centre halves that are good enough to play as 2 centre halves. I think you know, Maguire tends to get pulled out of a position and gets ripped apart at Manchester United, but that's because he plays as a 2. And everyone says, well, he plays okay for England. Well, he plays usually as a 3, either with John Stones or another, either with Connor Cody or
Tomori, hopefully soon.
or Mings or anybody like that. Yeah. So, but they always play as a 3, and I think I would actually struggle to pick my best 2 out of the 4 or 5 options that England have got available to them. And I think, if anything, maybe the Hungary game is probably proved once and for all that, or certainly in the short term, that we can't play as a 4-4-2. So I think you'll notice that probably, you know, the World Cup, probably the 2 Nations League games that we've got sort of at the back end of September, that we're probably going to go to a back 3, the 2 wing backs, and then, you know, Declan Rice and Phillips probably in the centre, or Henderson or whoever else sort of comes into that. I don't think you're going to see any attacking flair any time soon, to be quite honest. I think he's probably maybe tried that and got burnt by it. Whether a different manager would have a different view on that and be able to get more out of that attacking flair that we've got, possibly.
I mean,
possibly.
You picked the best system with the players you got. In 2018, he played 3-5-2, but in the Euros last year, he played 4-3-3. I thought he got it spot on. In semi-final and the final, it is working, isn't it? Like we said there, I think Southgate's biggest weakness is probably game management. It's happened twice where we've had an early lead and we've fluffed it. Yeah. So you've got to be a bit more brave and go for it, I think.
Well, I certainly think against Italy, if we'd have gone for it, we'd have won a game.
Yeah,
I'm convinced that at 2-0, we score a second one, we're not losing that game.
That's exactly the same with Croatia.
But as soon as we let the Italians back in, we gave them a foothold of an equaliser. I've got to be honest, from that point on, there was only going to be one winner, and it wasn't going to be us. I mean, everyone said about penalties, but I thought, to be quite honest, from quite a far point into the game, penalties was probably about our best bet. Albeit that the second half of extra time, we probably tried to give it a go again, which was a bit frustrating, because, to be quite honest, if we'd have done that earlier, then we wouldn't have been in that position in the first place. But it's all ifs and buts, and whatever, we lost, so it doesn't matter now, doesn't it? You just got to learn from that experience and move on.
No. But long may the semi-finals and finals continue, because they do us country proud and bring us all united as well. Never had that many people come up to me and say, "All right, mate, is it coming home?" So many times. But
and at the end of the day, with a lot of it, it gives us, last summer gave everyone a lot of enjoyment, didn't it? And gave everyone a real lift. More of that. I'm injecting that all day long. Absolutely.
So Shrewsbury, England. Let's talk about groundhopping then. So how did groundhopping start?
I guess that would probably be sort of, I suppose, watching sort of Shrewsbury games, go to away games, and obviously starting to see some of the different stadiums that obviously there, like I said, probably first sort of away games at places like sort of Warsaw, Birmingham, places that were sort of quite local. And actually, when we dropped back into third division, so it was 1989, so 89-90 season, actually started going to quite a few sort of Shrewsbury away games with my mates that season. And I know that we went to Blackpool sort of early doors. We played Blackpool away, so that was one we kind of like. That was sort of, I suppose, a bit off the radar, really. That was quite a long way to sort of go, really, albeit that you look now and kind of Blackpool, I'd probably go to Blackpool for a game in the evening if it was sort of, Squires Gate or whatever. I've been to Blackpool for an evening game these days. So yeah, not far. But at the time, that was a big deal. And some of the other sort of sides in there, I remember going to Fulham at Christmas, Notts County, we played on Boxing Day. So we started to sort of get into sort of going to some of these other teams. But I suppose with Shrewsbury traditionally sort of being third division, there's only going to be sort of so many grounds in that you're going to be able to do. And a mate of mine, who was a Liverpool fan at the time, I'm kind of saying, he said to me, he said, I've got a spare ticket for Liverpool against Spurs on Sunday. You fancy that? I was like, yeah, I can do. And then started to sort of go to sort of other games with him. I think we ended up going to Plough Lane to watch Liverpool away at Wimbledon and kind of that. So it was me and a mate from Basin Hill, actually. We sort of so actually, what would it be like to do the 92? And I think at that point you kind of look and think, well, you've got to start doing a few sort of neutral games, because you're not going to be able to cover it, sort of doing it all with Shrewsbury. So that was where we, try and do as many as we could, away games with Shrewsbury if they were new grounds. And I suppose really when we said that by doing the 92, all of a sudden that seemed like a world away. You think, good grief, how the hell are we ever going to achieve this? But we sort of did it, and then I suppose that then sort of progresses sort of on to doing sort of other grounds. I mean, while we were doing the 92, we sort of do a few of the conference teams, or what's now the National League. Like sort of Macclesfield, Northwich Victoria, when they were playing at their sort of old ground. Kidderminster were always one of the sort of big teams in there. Obviously Telford, a local in that as well, local rivals to us. So there was some fairly local teams that were at that level that were in there as well. But you sort of did notice the difference between sort of league teams and even some of those bigger sort of non-league teams when you went into to visit grounds and games at in the conference. It did feel like non-league, whereas you know as well I do now. You go to the teams in the National League now, and some of the teams that are in there, your Chesterfields, your Notts Counties, Wrexhams, and that they're ex-league clubs, aren't they? It is like a football league graveyard, really, with some of the grounds that are in there. So it's a very different place. But so that was really, I suppose, where the groundhopping started. So it started by doing the 92. Really was where that all kicked off from.
It always starts with, I'm going to do the 92. That's how I started. It's how my Mansfield mate started. It's like we start going to away games, and then I can remember going to Crewe away on a Wednesday night with Mansfield. And guy got back on the coach and he said, "How many 92 done, mate?" I said, "I know about 11 at this point." He said, "After them all, mate, all 92." And me, mate, said, "We should do the 92, mate." Like literally, it starts with that.
Stop that.
Then it spills over into the National League.
Yeah. And
then you just get lower and lower, and then that's it.
Yeah,
you end up going to grassroots.
And that's it. And I think by doing the 92, I think that's the only way it can start. I don't really know anybody that started from the bottom and working the other way, because I don't know whether groundhopping really works like that, really, to be quite honest. No. But certainly for me, it's kind of like obviously sort of doing National League. I actually moved to Shifnal sort of 20 odd years ago. And There was a few lads I got to know over there that I played football with. They played for Shifnal Town. They were in a division at the time called the Midland Alliance, which is, I suppose, effectively what is now what the Midland League is. And I started to watch them. So sometimes if Shrewsbury were away, I'd go and watch them, and we started going to a few away games. And I suppose that was sort of really what kicked off sort of groundhopping at that sort of level. And, you know, even sort of lower sort of down or above sort of Shifnal, but below the sort of National League. What you had at the time, you didn't have like national North and South, so you went straight into Northern Premier, Southern Premier, and the Isthmian, and those were the feeder leagues sort of basically in. So there was some fairly senior teams, sort of local, you know, like Hensford, Bilston Town would be in the Southern Premier. Even Bridge North, that were local to me, they were in the Southern Premier. So you could go and watch some local football that was still quite a high level that sat just below the conference. So, you know, I'd sort of maybe have a bit of a travel around, do some of these other little sort of, you know, smaller teams sort of around here. Obviously then watching Sheffield at Step 5. So that's what got me sort of into watching that sort of level of football. And then I sort of had a thought that one day, wouldn't it be really good to sort of do all the teams sort of, you know, the conference, and then Southern Premier, Northern Premier, and Isthmian Premier level. And I think at the time there was that was around about 200 teams. So that really kicked on from doing the 92. You know, we had another couple hundred, 220 teams or whatever that was then to sort of to go out. And actually, to this day, I've never actually ever completed steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's always been teams that have come in and out that I need. So I've never ever completed it at that level. But watching Shifnal, that was sort of what introduced me to sort of Step 5 and like the FA Vars team. So I suppose, you know, doing the Isthmian and all of that, Southern League, they were like the FA Trophy team. So I suppose it was doing every team that could potentially play in the FA Trophy. And then, you know, you look at the FA Vars teams, and that's just a completely different ball game, you know, with the amount of teams that are in there, as you know. Yeah, that takes a bit of doing, really, to be quite honest. There's still plenty of teams at that level I've got to go at. So yeah, it's great.
So many more. I mean, how many grounds are you on now? Would you say? You know,
you know what? I knew you were going to ask that, so I actually had a look before because I needed to just update I think every groundhopper's got a spreadsheet, haven't they? So. You know, I updated that before. It's actually 1,772. So, yeah, but albeit that I still need quite a bit sort of at Step 6. So, you know, there's still plenty of stuff to sort of go at. So there's a lot of sort of, I suppose, foreign grounds in there as well that I've done with England, and foreign trips, sort of ground hopping and that. So, you know, that sort of bumped the numbers up. Scotland, you know, obviously Wales obviously is close to where I am. So there's a lot of great grounds in sort of Wales that you can sort of visit, not sort of too far away. So yeah, there's plenty to go at. And as you know, once you start, sort of, it's almost opening a Pandora's box, isn't it? Once you start, it's sort of like, yeah, you're absolutely knackered, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's the best one? Have you got a favourite out of all them 1,700, or a top 5, 10 maybe?
No, I remember Dan asking me this question years ago, and I was like, I struggled to answer it then. I think probably my favourite ground, I think, is a bit of a groundhopper sort of delight, which is Glentoran in Belfast. That's the one that everybody sort of goes to. Beyond that, I mean, there's a lot of great places you sort of go, but I would struggle to pick one out that you're kind of out and out sort of think, yeah, that's my favourite. But if I was going to pick one, maybe Glentoran. Strangely, I think I pretty much said a similar sort of thing to Dan actually a couple of years ago when we were talking about this. I said Wembley, because actually of what Wembley represents in terms of the national team, you know, I actually quite like Wembley as a stadium. I think it's, you know, the rebuild, I think it's a superb stadium, albeit that a lot of England supporters would not agree with me whatsoever. They kind of call me all the names under the sun for probably saying this, but I think in terms of what the ground sort of represents, and it's the national stadium, it's the national team that play there. You know, even if you're not looking at it from a ground point of view, in terms of what it represents, I think it's you know, it's a great place, and I thought they made a good job of the rebuild. The the old Wembley I loved, in all fairness, to be quite honest, with the Twin Towers. It was always a special occasion going there.
Fair play.
Yeah. I got to be honest. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll go on to the 5 grounds later. We were talking about 5 or 10 grounds, weren't we? I suggested maybe visit, and maybe we'll sort of have a little bit of a chat around that, and then maybe explain it a little bit more. But
fair play.
Yeah.
So, is there any grounds that stick out to you for the wrong reasons, would you say, along the way?
Again, I think it's a difficult question to answer. I think when I was doing the 92 sort of originally back in the day, there were probably grounds that we went to at the time where you kind of like, Halifax would be one that would instantly sort of spring to mind, a Shea, and you kind of think, Jesus Christ, what am I doing here? What is this? Hereford might be another one that you'd sort of look at and you kind of, good grief, there's weeds growing out the terrace, sort of like the old tin sort of shack on the sides, is sort of like a tree sort of growing through it and kind of whatever. And I think at the time, probably I would probably look at that and think, good grief, what the hell is this place? But I think in the sands of time where new stadiums have come in, old stadiums have been replaced, some of those old stadiums that you thought weren't that great at the time are actually probably the ones now that still hold some charm and some character. I mean, somewhere like Hereford now, you probably look at it and think, what a great place that is. It's a bit of a groundhopper's dream again, isn't it? It's as football used to be. So I think my opinion probably over the last sort of 30 years I would say has probably changed. The places I probably looked at and thought, Jesus, what is this joint? You look at now and think, actually, it's okay. I suppose one that maybe springs to mind, possibly maybe the San Siro, where you kind of walk up to it. I think from the outside, you look at it, you think, wow, what a stadium. You kind of look at it. Inside, probably not that great. So whether I wouldn't say worst stadium, but whether there was a little bit of disappointment, maybe whether it was a little bit disappointing, possibly, I don't know. But certainly from the outside of it, yeah. I mean, the pictures when you see the outside of it, it's iconic. Inside, it's one of those, it's a strange one. It's probably better outside than it is inside, if that makes sense.
Fair play.
But not that it's poor by any stretch, but because it's not. But whether it was a little bit disappointing when he kind of went in there and kind of went, oh, is this it? But yeah, worst stadiums, I don't know. I'd struggle to answer that, mate, really, to be quite honest.
Fair play. Like me, easy to please. Don't give a low one, will you? What about fans then? Who are the best fans you've come across, do you think? Be as biased as you like, I don't mind. You can say Shrewsbury if you want.
Well, I guess from a supporter point of view, yeah, or my mates are Shrewsbury fans or England fans. Obviously, I've got friends and that, guys like yourself who know through groundhopping and that now. Best fans, again, I'd probably struggle to really nail that one down. I remember the World Cup. Yeah, there is. World Cup in 2014. Actually, we ran into a bunch of Chile fans, and we ran into them a few times as well. And they were absolutely superb. They were brilliant fans. Loved all the sort of razzmatazz about them. Great to chat to and everything else. But again, it's a difficult question now, and I know that you're going to ask worst set of fans as well. Yeah, again, I would really struggle with that. I mean, I think if you said worst fans, I think England could be the best set of fans. I think at times they can, there are certain people that you meet in life that you think, good grief, I never want to meet him again, or or kind of whatever. And sometimes they can be the worst fans, can't they? And I think every club has good and bad fans. There's nothing really that ever really springs to mind where I've gone somewhere and thought, good God, I'd never sort of go there again. Albeit that maybe Russia in 2007 when we went over and watched England. But then that was more about probably the country as it was rather than a set of fans or individuals. Bit of a strange, odd place at the time. There's a few sort of strange and odd things that sort of went on, which is probably a conversation for maybe another time. But when we went back in 2018, I was quite apprehensive actually about the World Cup in 2018 when we went back, because I remembered sort of things that had happened 2007 and wasn't sort of overly keen. In fact, I was probably one place I'd probably said I might never kind of go back. But 2018, I thought the World Cup they hosted over there, I think, was absolutely brilliant. It was absolutely superb. But obviously, unfortunately, with everything that's sort of going on in the world at the moment, I guess Russia is probably somewhere we'll never ever go again. So, you know, is what it is, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, fair point. I mean, have you ever been to West Didsbury and Chorlton in Manchester?
I have.
I mean, what do you make of them? I love them fans, but they're absolutely incredible. I did just go when they were lifting the trophy, though, to be fair, so maybe that might have helped a bit more, but still, wow. I've
got to be honest, it's a little while since I've been there, in all fairness. I remember kind of going up there sort of one Friday night, shot up there sort of after work, and I think they hadn't long sort of come into the Northwest Counties League, so they'd probably been promoted up from the Manchester League, so they new into the Northwest Counties League. But yeah, they seemed a good bunch of guys. I mean, it's they're pretty keen, aren't they? I think I've seen some videos and that I think you've posted and that, and kind of like they're keen.
Very.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's great to see. It's great to see.
Fair play, enjoying their local club.
Absolutely.
What about one ground that you haven't been to that you really want to go to? Is there anyone that's really high on your bucket list?
Boca Juniors.
Same here, man. Absolutely. Have you seen that documentary on Copa 90, the Super Classico?
When they were, that's right. When they were playing
River Plate,
and they ended up playing in Spain and that, didn't they? It was, it's a
shame. It was a terrible shame, but what a first leg, atmosphere and everything.
Wouldn't you just love to be part of that? But Argentina is on my bucket list, full stop.
Not just them two, there's more.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember.
Independiente, I think, look good.
Absolutely, you got Racing Club, Independiente, Newell's Old Boys. There's a whole host of teams over there that you kind of look and just think, wow. And actually, I think it was the start of lockdown, so 2020 sort of lockdown. Obviously, we hadn't got anything much to do in the evening. I mean, obviously, I was lucky enough to have carried on working. So, my days were filled with working, but sort of in the evening, so I hadn't got a lot to do because you couldn't go out. So I remember looking at Argentina as sort of I suppose it was a project, to sort of get there and try and do some games. And I remember looking at I think the top flight in Argentina, I think it's like a 30-team division or something ridiculous. And there's sort of 20 odd, I think, we're in the Buenos Aires sort of like metropolitan area. And then you look at the second division, and then you look at the third division, I think the fourth division, you look at the lower divisions. And there's, out of all of those divisions, it's like about 70 odd teams or something ridiculous. So it's a bit like the Football League, 92 teams, and sort of 70 of them all being based in London. Absolutely bonkers. I mean, you could go on a trip there. You could do 2 weeks, 3 weeks there. You could plan it really well. You could tick off some of the top teams there, visit some of the top grounds, get involved in some of the top atmospheres. And I've got to be honest, I don't even think you'd be scratching the surface. And then you've got a boat trip over to Montevideo in Uruguay, which is just across the water. I think that was only sort of 2 hours on a boat across the water. And then you've got Montevideo. It's South America. Susan, just take a drink. It's I'm doing too much gassing, mate. You need to tell me to shut up if I'm rattling on. South America full stop is somewhere I'd love to be. Obviously, been with Brazil World Cup in 2014, but that's the only time I've been. So Argentina, absolutely on the bucket list. Closer to home, still haven't done Valencia. Valencia's one I'd like to do. I'll get there soon as well. So now we're all able to travel again. That'll be one that will be sort of on the bucket list. It's a little bit closer to home. And then the rest, mate, it's just as you go, isn't it? Really, So that, you wake up on a Saturday morning. Sometimes you think, I don't know where I'm going today, and then something crops up, and somebody will say I'm going here, or when fixtures start to drop a little bit in the winter, when weather sometimes that dictates where you go. So I've got no real sort of preconceived plans for this sort of upcoming season in terms of places I'm going, apart from playing a couple of games at the World Cup. And then we've got like Nations League games, England. We're talking about San Siro. We actually get to see England in the San Siro at the end of September, which will be fantastic. And that ground is going to get knocked down. They AC are building a new ground, so Milan are building a new ground, I should say. They both play there, don't they? So that'd be great to see them. But really, apart from that, I've no other real plans. Grounds I'm really planning. We'll just see how it goes, and
we need to a long-term work placement, don't we, in Argentina? Work out there for 6 months during the season.
My God, how good would that be? Good would that be? Yeah, it'd just be immense, wouldn't it? But some of the atmospheres, just look absolutely crackers. Yeah. It's just wow. Yeah.
Before we move on to the grams that we give to each other, one question I didn't put down on there before, and this one I've been asking to a few people. If you could bring back one demolished ground, what would it be? One of these grounds that's gone, no longer with us. What would you bring back if there was any?
Football League, I'd bring back Scunthorpe.
I mean grounds, not teams. They've still got their ground.
Glanford Park. I mean in terms of Glanford Park.
No,
not Glanford Park. Old Showground. Is that not what you mean in terms of bringing an old ground back?
I didn't know the other ground before Glanford Park.
Glanford Park, Glanford Park, I suppose I think they moved in. I think it was around about the late 80s, 1988, 89, 88, I think it was. But that was the first purpose-built out of town ground. The only reason I've said that, purely selfishly, of the 92, it was the one I didn't do.
Fair enough.
So I'm just being completely selfish. Yeah, bring it back. I never did it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, really.
No, fair play. The answer itself. Right. So, 5 to 10 grounds that we're going to get each of us. I've got my notes ready, Vaughany's to-do list.
Okay, go on.
You don't say ones I've already been to, because I'm going to struggle me. But, you want to go first?
Yeah, I've got 5 for you. They're all in the British Isles, so it's not too far to travel, albeit that one does involve a little bit of water, so you've either got to go on a boat or you're going to have to fly. And this is one that we've sort of already sort of mentioned, and that's Glentoran in Belfast. I would say that's one you're going to need to get to. The others aren't as far, but they're all in Scotland. So I've picked 4 in Scotland. So I've picked no English ones. You've got Ayr United.
Yep.
You've got Greenock Morton.
Greenock Morton, that's another one that's been mentioned.
Yeah.
By Lawrence again.
You've got Arbroath.
Arbroath.
So on the east coast of Scotland. Definitely recommend that. And then I've got Elgin City, which are in the Highlands.
City. In the Highlands. Yeah.
So those
Scotland.
Those are my 5. So yeah. So it's it might be a long drive or a long train trip to those, but at least you're not sort of I'm going to have to renew your passport for those 4, matey.
A couple of long drives.
Like I said, swim. You've got to swim on one of them as well. But
absolutely. I mean, Glentoran and Lawrence can't speak highly enough of that place.
Yeah, it is an amazing place.
Ground.
Yeah,
and he's in the 2000s grounds club.
Yeah,
it looks incredible. One of its own kind as well.
Yeah, it's very unique. It's very unique in the way it looks. Very unique in the way it is. It's just stunning, mate. You've got to. It's almost. I think you've got to almost go there and see it yourself to respect its I suppose its beauty, really. I mean, I think as a groundhopper, we call it groundhopping porn. Again, I think what I've sort of said maybe about grounds like back in the day, kind of Halifax or Hereford, using those 2 again as an example, and just thought, Jesus Christ, what the hell's this place? You might get a lot of people that are sort of like, football over the last sort of 10 years, they're used to state-of-the-art stadiums and that type of thing, they'd probably look at it and kind of go, what the hell is this? You know, probably as I did as a kid, sort of back in the day. But certainly from a groundhopping point of view, and the heritage and terracing and the old sort of stand that's there and wooden seats and everything that kind of goes with it, you know, there should be a preservation order stuck on that, to be quite honest. Yeah, if everybody ever says they're sending the bulldozers in there, I think there'll be a couple of hundred of us say no, you can't be doing with it.
Well, my 5, you've probably already done my 5. These are 5 grounds you've probably done, but I absolutely loved. One of them's the old Boston United ground. I'm sure you've been there. I have. It's absolutely incredible.
It's great old ground. It's good to see that it's still there as well. It's still being used as well, isn't it? So it's it's good to see that the bulldozers haven't moved in. Yeah, another one fantastic place.
Yeah, another one that's still in use. It's going to be gone soon. Mainly, I think the fan base were good at this ground. Gresley Rovers.
Okay. Yeah, the most.
Have you been there?
Yeah. It's both. I've got to be honest. Both of those I haven't been to for a long time. Gresley, I probably haven't been to. Yeah, probably nearly 30 years. Actually, probably. I think it was. Wow. Yeah, it's probably early 90s, maybe mid 90s. Maybe I went there, but yeah, I haven't been to Gresley for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, Gresley, they weren't like a singing fan base. They had a drum, they were banging, but they weren't singing. They're not like a singing fan base, but you could feel the passion in the air, if that makes sense.
That's good.
Some clubs are like that. They don't really sing. They've got a drum, but they don't use it to sing. But you could just... There's something about that place I absolutely love when I went. And they got a last-minute goal.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. One that I haven't been to, you probably have, one I want to get to this season, Workington.
Yeah, been to Workington. Yeah.
What about that one, do you think?
Workington's good. It's not quite as good as it used to be. The stands, they got cropped, so they sort of lopped it off.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of old terrace in there. So the terracing, I mean, you could when you go there, you'll see that the terracing that sort of pans round. There's an old sort of cover on the one side. So yes, that's absolutely, definitely worth going to. In fact, they've been muted to be moving off that ground for a little while now. They were, I think, was it start of last season? I think they were talking about moving into the rugby club next door, but it never happened, and they've stayed where they are. So it might be one to do sooner rather than later if they start talking about moving off again. But yeah, a lot of terrace in there. Yeah, there's nothing not to like at Workington. Just a bit of a trek out onto that Cumbrian coast. That's the only problem with that place.
Absolutely. One ground that I did last season that I really liked. Again, you've probably done it. Newquay in Cornwall.
Yeah, it's Mount Wise. Yeah,
absolutely loved it. Went there for pre-season with kids to watch Nuneaton Borough. What a ground!
I've actually
loved it.
I've been there a couple of times actually. I've seen Newquay play. I was down on holiday there again, probably best part by 30 years ago, and then Shrewsbury played a pre-season friendly there. I've actually seen Shrewsbury there. Would you believe?
Wow.
Yeah. I was walking. In fact, I was walking around. I got like a training top on, a pair of shorts because it was a pre-season, and obviously somebody mistook me for a footballer. Basically, I was like, of the younger days as well. I got hair back then as well. Yeah. Sort of walking around the pitch, and the next thing I'm sort of confronted with sort of 4 or 5 people with notebooks wanting me to sign their books. They obviously thought I was something to do with the playing sort of side of things. So it was, I had to sort of politely decline and sort of say, look, I'm just some idiot that's just come to watch the game, mate. You know, it's like I've just walked out the bar, not the changing room.
And my last one is my local Shirebrook town. Don't know if you've been there.
Shirebrook I've been to.
I used to watch them as a kid quite a lot. Yeah, we used to have a drum as well, and we used to use it.
That's
times moved on.
If you've got a drum, you've got to use it. So it's every chance when I went to Shirebrook, you were there. Then yeah. Maybe
if there was a bit of noise singing in the stand, then it would have been me.
I seem to remember there being a bit of a cover on the one side, and drum being banged and whatever. So yeah, that was you.
Do you remember what year it was when you went?
I would think that's got to be maybe 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago, I would think, something like
2012, 2013, Simon. Yeah, it would have been me there, definitely.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah,
I didn't get one that I hadn't done. But one grand I want to ask you about, just because, well, two actually, because Lawrence is another one that spoke about them. One of them I know you've been to, Nanping in Cornwall.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that one?
That's a really, really quirky place. Quite, well, very, very, very unique. If you're going to go to Nanping and have a look around there, you're not going to visit another football ground that's remotely like it. It's just bizarre. And the one sort of side, it's almost like going on a bit of a country walk. So it's got all these like little paths and that sort of go around the back of the sort of pitch, but there's sort of high trees and bushes. It's literally, it's like going for a walk in a wood, and then you come out on like a little patch and you can watch the game, and then there'll be like a bench or something there. And there's like the one cover beyond the one goal is some steps that sort of lead up, and it's sort of almost like a little sort of like a little coliseum sort of behind the goal, which is like a little cover, and it's got sort of Nanping written into it. The one angle, actually, the one side is actually just got the clubhouse, and it's a bit sort of well, nothing sort of much going on. There's the car park, and you kind of look at that, and it just looks like any normal football ground. But three sides of it, certainly the one side, there's a lot of hedgerows, bushes, trees. I say it's almost like a little sort of country path that sort of weaves its way round. You know, you go up a path and you kind of think, where am I going to come out? Oh, I'm watching the game here now. It's just a bizarre place. It's great, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the way I've explained it there, I haven't done it remotely any justice, but yeah, try and get down. If it's a nice sunny day, a nice dry day, yeah, I'd definitely recommend it. Kind of get down there. In fact, actually, there's another ground that's near Nanping, and I never know quite how to pronounce it. It's either called Rock or Roach.
Roach Rock, I think it is.
Yeah, it's ROCHE.
Yeah.
And that is actually quite unique, and it's got like a granite rock, sort of like at the one side of the ground, so you can actually get some really good pictures, sort of like the clubhouse and the goal, and with the rock in the background. And again, that's probably 5 miles up the road from Nanping. So if you ever see that as a double, at 12 o'clock and a 3 o'clock, then I would sort of say to you, get in your car and go. I've never actually ever seen it come up as a double. Like I said, I've done Nanping now anyway, but I actually stopped at Roach on the way back for a bit of a look at it, and I haven't actually done a game there, but I will do at some stage. But if it came up as a double, to do Roach, and then Nanping just happened to be at home as well, and I could do the two, then I'd happily go back and have another look. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And the other one I was going to mention to you was one in Wales, pronounced Garw, I believe, JRW.
I haven't. No, I haven't. That's one I haven't done. There's a couple in Wales that I would say that I would want to do it on the hit list, I suppose. Garw is one of them. Blaine Ronda is another one as well. But yes, I think it would be. Yeah. Again, another quite unique ground. But Garw, it's good in the way it looks, and you've got quite a high vantage point that you can watch the game from. Again, Lawrence and all these guys that have done sort of far more grounds than I have. That'd be Groundhopping porn sort of thing. Like, so I've got a little bit to do to sort of catch up with some of those guys. But yeah, Garw's definitely on the hit list. It's one, like I say, it's one I haven't done, and I think it's over towards Swansea. I think it's over that sort of way.
Yeah,
but
southwest.
Definitely recommend that. Blaine Ronda is another one that I'd be like to do as well. No, that's South Wales as well, but that's in the valleys.
Okay.
So Blaine Ronda is sort of a little bit closer to the pair of us, really. But Garw would have been not too far from where you were last time I saw you in South Wales. Yeah.
Fair play. Well, I'll try and get there in August when I'm not on coaching duties, so we'll see what happens. But, we'll finish off on the last question then.
Oh, hi, pal.
If you could sum up football in 3 words or groundhopping, what would it be? 3 separate words or 3-word phrase?
I think I've had a couple. I had a couple that I can. So I'm going to give you both of them, if you don't mind.
Okay. No, go for it.
I think with obviously with everything that sort of goes with non-league and ground hopping and everything, the first one I sort of first sprung to mind was just try it, because I think a lot of people sort of look at non-league football and just think, it's glorified pub football, and I think it's anything but. And I think there's a lot of fans I know that go to non-league football now that obviously I don't support a big club. I still support a League One side, as you do, Jay, with Mansfield. But you still got that sort of community feel to it. Yeah. But I think once you start probably getting above League One, that's where that then starts to dissipate and disappear. And I think once you start getting up into the Championship and some of the big money that's circulating around, and certainly the Premier League, you can feel quite distant from the club. You're just another number. Your money isn't sort of appreciated. It's just swallowed up in the great ether of things, really, to be quite honest. But at non-league level, everybody that goes through the turnstiles is appreciated, whether that's fans of the club, whether it's groundhoppers like ourselves. Some of the people that you get to meet, and some of the places you get to go, some of the grounds you get to go and have a look, the whole day out that you can have. Sometimes people don't really realise that there's some good football at maybe a low level on their doorstep. So I would say just try it. And the second one really that kicks on, I suppose, which I think is with money and that being tight and that for everybody at the moment, is value for money, because I think non-league football is value for money. It's you're not getting ripped off. That the money that you're paying is going to the club. It's not going to get sort of rinsed on wages. Well, not most of the time. Most of the time, your money is going into the infrastructure of the club and that you're sort of visiting. Most of them have got bars. You can go and have a beer. You can stand outside. You can, you watch the football with a beer. It's a relaxed atmosphere. Most of the time, if you're driving, you can just park your car outside. If you go to a Premier League game, you haven't got to drive and park your car 8 miles away and catch a train and all this. I've got to be honest, I sometimes sort of forget, I suppose. Sometimes you go to England games and obviously you've got to plan and think about games. Obviously Wembley, we know that the drill for that, but sometimes occasionally I'll go to a Premier League game and you kind of like, you're having to park sort of 4 miles away, and then you go into the pubs by the ground and it's rammed, and then you think, oh dear, actually I don't know whether this is why I gave all of this up, really. I don't really enjoy it really that much, but value for money. And I think certainly at the moment in time where people are struggling for cash, if you wanted to go and watch some football and you can't afford to, take yourself or the kids or whatever it be to sort of Premier League Championship football, then just go and try your local football team. And actually, I think a lot of people have done that, have probably been pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely. 100%. Well, Vaughany, it's been a pleasure to finally get you on. Definitely worth the wait. And I'm sure I'll see you again on the road sometime soon.
You will do, mate. Give me a shout wherever you're going. If you're going to Garu, give us a shout. Yeah. Might well join you.
Stop off on the way.
Absolutely. Come and pick me up. Here we go. We're planning a trip, aren't we, mate? So
here we are,
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks for having me on, Jake. It's been a pleasure, mate.
As mate, yeah. And as I say, we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely, pal. You take care of yourself, yeah?
Fantastic. This has been the FANA Fan Podcast. We'll see you next time. Ta-da.